As an international network of audit, tax, and consulting professionals, RSM International is fortunate to work with some of the world's most knowledgeable and experienced business experts and middle market business leaders. Leading Through Change is a series of talks designed to share valuable insight to help business leaders anticipate, plan, innovate, or respond to change, whether through disruption, crisis, or business transformation. Graeme Codrington is an expert on the future of work. He is a researcher, author, futurist presenter, and board advisor working across multiple industries and sectors. He has a particular interest in the disruptive forces changing how people live, work, interact, and connect with each other. Speaking internationally to over 100,000 people in more than 20 different countries every year, his client list includes some of the world's top companies. Graeme is a co-founder and international director of Tomorrow Today, a global firm of futurists and business strategists. He is also a guest lecturer at 5 top business schools, including the London Business School, and is an author of 5 best-selling books. Dr.Nick designs and directs a suite of award-winning leadership initiatives commissioned by governments and globally recognized international organizations. As founding director of the leadership program at the East-West Center, Nick's work also included the flagship Asia-Pacific leadership programs, now in its 20th year. He has also worked with corporate leaders from over 75 countries in a wide range of industries, presented on leadership at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, and advised the United Nations on leadership development. Today, Graeme and Nick will be discussing the topic of leaders as brokers of hope.
Hi there, and welcome to the Leading Through Change webinar series. My name is Graeme Codrington, and I'm joined today by my colleague Nick Barker. We're from an organization called Tomorrow Today Global. We're futurists, we're trend watchers, scenario planners, and leadership development experts. And that's why Nick is joining me today. Nick is a professor at the leadership program of the East-West Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. And Nick, I think that's where you're locked down at the moment in Hawaii. I'm locked down in Johannesburg. It's great that we can chat across the time zones this way.
Yes, hello, Graeme, and aloha from Honolulu in Hawaii. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I look forward to having a conversation this morning.
And the conversation that we're going to have is one that's a huge conversation during a time of crisis. I mean, when we're in a crisis, whatever that crisis may be, whether it's a global pandemic or a family medical emergency or any other form of crisis, I think one of the things that people turn to most, and I think what a lot of leaders think that their role is to give people hope. But Nick, I know this issue of hope is something that you've been looking at as part of your work at the East-West Center. I know it's part of your leadership program. And I think you have a slightly different view about this, don't you? I think hope might even be dangerous in your view.
It can be dangerous. And the key is to unpack hope and really learn what it is and how to lead it. You're exactly right, Graeme. In a time of crisis or emergency or adversity, people are desperate for hope. And we see this in any type of crisis around the world. It surfaces in different ways. At the same time, there's enormous pressure on leaders to provide hope for people, to give hope to people, to tell people everything's going to be okay. But we also know that leading hope is a risky business. It's challenging, it's not straightforward, and you look at expressions that we're all familiar with, like it's the hope that kills you, and these indicate proceed at your own risk. So I'm grateful for this opportunity just to have a conversation around hope, to firstly begin by understanding what hope is and what it's not, and then looking at some practical steps for how leaders can lead hope.
So, Nick, I know that when I've heard you talk about this topic, you have a wonderful way of framing it. And I think this goes all the way back to antiquity and Greek legends and so on. Is it Pandora?
Yes, if you'll allow me for a second to go back to Greek mythology, one of our earliest references of hope came from the poems 2,700 years ago, when Pandora opened her famous box and released evils into the world. Now, if you look into that more closely, you'll find that one element was left behind in that box, and that was hope. And hope was a gift from the gods to humanity. In other words, it was a source of comfort, a source of strength, a source of inspiration. Now, if we jump forward 2,700 years, look at young climate activist Greta Thunberg. Greta said at the Davos Forum, the World Economic Forum, she said, "I don't want you to be hopeful, I want you to panic." In other words, she was rejecting hope. So we've gone from hope being a gift from the gods to an outright rejection of hope in an era of climate change. And so for leaders, it's very confusing. How do we navigate through this terrain? How do we handle these two polar opposite positions? And my view is that leaders are brokers of hope. It's part of the job. If you're a senior leader, you're expected to broker hope for people. And by that, I mean, you are leading a group of people. It's a tough time and there is hope, and you have to find a way to be an intermediary between hope and those people, to use hope productively and to manage it responsibly. But when you lead hope, it's like, it's like driving a sports car on a mountaintop road with the top down. It's exhilarating. You feel alive. When hope is working, it's incredible. You feel you can achieve anything. It's an inspiration. It connects with people very deeply. At the same time, a mountain road is dangerous. There are steep drops on either side. There are hairpin bends and twists and turns. And if you don't drive safely, if you take your eye off the road or stop concentrating, you will crash and you will fail leading hope. And the consequences are sometimes very serious. So what we need to do is to reframe hope, to, if you like, look at hope through new lenses and to try to see clearly, and then proceed with, okay, how are we going to lead hope effectively?
So I'm guessing, Nick, one of the biggest issues is that maybe we don't understand what hope is. I've got 3 teenage daughters, or now they're young adult daughters in my house. And so there's a lot of makeup going around, and Revlon sells hope, don't they? I mean, what's the famous line that Revlon uses?
Revlon does indeed sell hope. They commercialize hope, and the founder was very upfront about this. I mean, Revlon now sells a product called Hope in a Jar. And your 3 teenage daughters are probably more familiar with this than I am. But the founder of Revlon, Charles Revlon, said, in the factory we make cosmetics, but in drugstores we sell hope. And he was quite upfront about this. Most companies are more nuanced in their marketing, but he was totally upfront.
That's pretty on the nose, isn't it? But that's not what you really mean by hope, or maybe that's just an incorrect version of hope, is it?
Yes, it is. But I mean, if you think of how hope is infused in society, I mean, Alexander Pope back in 1773 said hope springs eternal, and we often use that expression widely today. And you think about all the different ways that when you were growing up, perhaps, or the times that you were asked to make a wish, if there's a shooting star, wish upon a shooting star. If you blow out the candles on your birthday cake, make a wish at that moment. Cross your fingers if you're worried about something. Throw a coin in a wishing well, or the mother of all examples, buy a lottery ticket. And in Europe, what are the odds? 1 in 145 million to win the lottery. We are not in the realm of rationality and logic here. There is something much deeper taking place with hope. And so the first thing to really say as we try to understand hope is what hope is not. And hope is not blind optimism. It's not a reckless optimism. Hope is not wishful thinking either. And it's certainly not a strategy or a policy. None of these things are what hope is. So let's begin there with what hope is not.
So you say hope is not a strategy. What do you mean by that? That we can't just have wishful thinking or blind optimism as the basis of a business decision or a life choice?
Absolutely. You cannot get stuck there. If hope is your strategy, you're in big trouble. And we'll unpack this later, but hope is always action-based. It must be grounded in action and concrete steps. You must get beyond, I hope this outcome will be okay. I wish it would be different from what it is. It is never blind optimism or reckless hoping, wishful thinking.
And that would be pretty dangerous for a leader, especially to just bring some form of wishful thinking to the party.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's probably the single biggest no-no of leading hope.
Absolutely. So we will obviously get to some things that you should do as a leader, but that definitely, if you are watching this webinar, put that on your not to-do list. Don't bring wishful thinking to the party. That's not your job as a leader. Now, in times of crisis or in times of difficulty, people want hope. Isn't that also one of the dangers, that if you even bring even a little bit of wishful thinking, people will grab onto that? I mean, they're looking for symbols of hope all over the place, aren't they?
They are, and understandably, we all do this. In a time of crisis, then what people do is they look for something that gives them hope and something that embodies that feeling, that warm, comforting, inspirational feeling of hope. So you'll see in huge disasters or crises, emergencies, that a symbol of hope will emerge. And anthropologists would tell us that a symbol is a vehicle that carries meaning. So in that icon, in that symbol, people can place their hopes. So an example would be in Mexico during the earthquake in 2017. A symbol of hope that emerged nationally was the rescue Navy dog Frida. Frida would go in after the earthquake and look for people who were trapped, and she is credited with she retired last year, she's credited with finding countless people and saving lives, as well as rescuing people who had died so their loved ones could bury them. And Frida became a symbol of national hope in Mexico. So countries look for these symbols, and the symbols anchor the hopes of a nation or a company, if a company's going through tough times, or a team, or even a family.